what's up YouTube? It's your brother YT. Wake 'em up, back at it again with another video. Let's get into these nursing layoffs. Nurses are being let go just as well as everybody else in 2025. Nurses are no exception. Remember the time where everybody and their grandma wanted to be a nurse. Being a nurse was considered the thing to be. Right now, it's not looking so promising. Family, you already know what to do. And if you're brand new too, thumbs up this video so YouTube can push this content out. Smash subscribe to join the tribe and ring the post notification bell as well. All right, let's get into it.
Went to West Coast University. I got my bachelor's degree and I did the nursing program there and a couple of prerequisite classes that I needed to do before starting the nursing program. And I was enrolled at West Coast from October of 2022 until March 2025. So this was like 2.5 years of school, of education at the university. And because it is a private school, I did expect to pay a little bit more for it, and I was okay with this. So I had first gone to the school in 2020. Prices were so much better, but I was just scared of the financial part of it because I wasn't really.
This person on Reddit says absolutely hate being a nurse and says that this is a pretty negative post, but she's gonna be for real though. Has been a nurse for 3 years now, only 25, but absolutely miserable. Have to go to work just to cry, and also the money just isn't really there. Always want to be a teacher. Absolutely hate it. Even got PTSD from what they've witnessed. Was an ER nurse for 2 years, and everything just isn't that great. You know, people also said that nursing is also very expensive, and I'll show you some tuition prices, and it's actually insane. But overall, the biggest complaints with being nursing is just the environment. Healthcare industry overall sucks. Management is awful, and nurses a lot of times take a lot of the heat in the hospital because they're usually ones in the front lines, right? You know, always burnt out, always exhausted, mental health is at an all-time low. And so far, you know, nursing just really isn't it anymore. And people even say that nursing is so incredibly expensive. This person lives in Texas. And if you want to become a nurse in this city, be prepared to make long commutes across insane traffic. Nursing school is a private university that's close, and it's $120,000 for a 3-year program.
Sheesh.
That is so expensive. Now, there's obviously a lot of other areas like community colleges are a lot cheaper, but just like what other people have said, the wait list is insane. Nursing layoffs are also pretty big, like Fresno Hospital quietly cuts hundreds of nursing supervisor jobs. And of course, overall, the nursing layoffs are getting bigger and bigger. There's also a lot of financial pressure from a lot of these hospitals as costs are more expensive. Insurance is also getting more crazy, as if you look into some of the biggest insurance companies, prices have fallen by a lot. Also, massive cuts in government funding for programs like Medicare and Medicaid. So we're going to be seeing a lot of that happening, and this is one of the reasons why you're suddenly seeing this massive increase of nursing layoffs. Now, nurses are still in pretty high demand in the United States, but let's be real, most people do want to work for a city or somewhat of a major metropolitan city, and a lot of those areas are becoming very difficult for people to find jobs. So check out some of these videos.
I literally got fired from my job during Nurses Week. So yay, I love being a nurse. But for some context / background, I'm a travel nurse. I had just accepted a travel assignment. Well, not just. I had been planning on doing this travel assignment for about a month now. We're about 2 weeks out. And I got the call yesterday that my contract has been canceled. So I have no job now. I basically got fired before I even started at this job. And I even worked in the same hospital system in LA previously before accepting this job. And even on my last shift, I was out of the kindness of my heart. I worked a 20-hour shift. I literally worked 8 hours overtime because they were short-staffed. But you know what? Hospitals really don't care about you.
No job.
That's what I learned from this. They could care less if you're a good nurse.
Wow. She worked 20 hours. 8 hours of that was overtime. Looking out for them, but in return, they can't look out for her. You know, one hand wash the other is none of that. They let her go. That's the thanks she got. Yeah, appreciate you. We're going to let you go now. Wow. 20 hours. Whew. I don't even know how she did that. Forget sleepwalking, I would have been sleep working. 20 hours, that's 4 off from a whole day. Man, what? They don't really care about us. They don't care about us. They do not care about us. They don't care. 20 hours and they let her go. Just like that.
Just are about their money. So happy Nurses Week, everybody. I hope your Nurses Week is better than mine because I'm fun unemployed right now.
Nursing school prices, let's talk about it. So I saw a post earlier on someone asking if paying $126,000 for a bachelor's degree in nursing is worth it.
Nope.
Let me give you the reasons why it is and why it's not. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you the way I did it, the way I got my licenses. Okay, so I started with my associates. I was $8,000, and that was 10 years ago. Once I got my license, I started working in a hospital, a government facility, and they paid for my bachelor's.
Okay.
Bachelor's was about $17,000. Okay, so I didn't pay that. After that, I started working at another hospital, and they would reimburse you about $5,000 a year for continuing education. So I would use that money, and I paid half of my master's with that. And I believe my master's was about 30, 40K. I can't remember.
Man.
So would I pay $126,000 and be in debt for a nursing degree? No, I wouldn't. The reason being is because once you're out of nursing school, your base pay is probably going to be $75,000, $80,000 a year, and that's in Texas. I don't know what the pay is in any other state. So would it be worth for you to be in debt $126,000 and make this amount of money? No, it's not smart. But if you're someone that's trying to get this degree fast and not have to apply, not have to wait, not have to be denied or put on a waiting list, then do it. At the end of the day, I feel like it doesn't matter where you get this degree. A lot of people might disagree with me, but you're going to have the same initials after your name like any other person, no matter if they went to a private school or if they went to a public school.
I agree.
You're going to be getting paid the same amount of money. You're going to be doing the same work. So it really doesn't matter. And I'm pretty sure some of y'all are going to say, oh, well, you can make this amount of money. You can make a lot of money in nursing, blah, blah, blah. You can pay it off. Yes, you can. But right out of school, right out of nursing school, you're not going to be making that much money unless you have 2-3 jobs.
Thank you. That's it right there. You're not going to be making that money unless you got 2 or 3 jobs, meaning you're stacking your incomes. You're putting it together. See, that's the part people don't understand for some reason. They fail to understand it. They think fresh out of college, they'll be making the maximum pay, the max pay. No, you're going to be making that base pay. I don't know where they get that from, but I've heard people say that before. I'm going to be making this. I'm like, not right out of college, you're not. You got to climb the ladder. Just like a corporate employee has to climb the corporate ladder, a nurse also has to climb the nursing ladder. Whatever y'all want to call it. You got to climb your way up. You got to work your way up. They're not just giving you that just right off the bat.
Yeah, some of y'all can say, oh, but what about travel nursing? I mean, a brand new nurse, I wouldn't recommend doing travel nursing, but once again, that's up to them, to each their own.
Hi, thank you for asking this question. And to answer your question, it really depends on the type of program that you're in. Just for reference, if you don't know, I just graduated from nursing school. I'm currently in a doctorate program, but I used to work in financial aid, so I am quite versed in this specific topic. If you are obtaining your first degree, your associate's or your bachelor's, and it's your first degree, you're eligible for all the financial aid options that the federal government gives you. That includes Pell Grants, state-based grants, so you can get all the need-based aid that you would need. So if it's your first degree, you have tons of student loan options as well as federal and state grant options. So it's just a matter of finding a school that's affordable. If you already have a bachelor's and you're getting a second bachelor's, you're eligible for, I believe it's an additional $4,000 to $6,000 in unsubsidized Stafford loan, and that may not cover the full amount that you would require for your bachelor's, your second bachelor's. In that case, the only other option is a private student loan. Some people go Sally Mae, some people go Discover. There are a lot of different private loan options for school. But as a second bachelor's, your federal aid and grant is limited. Now, if you're doing what I did, which is I went into a direct entry master's program, so I already have a bachelor's, but it's not in nursing, and I went straight into a master's program, you're eligible for financial aid based on the graduate level. So you get ultimately up to $20,500 in unsubsidized Stafford loan. You'll get scholarships usually from your institution, and then you get option of the graduate plus loan, which is where you can borrow up to your full cost of attendance, and you can expand that cost of attendance to borrow even more for your graduate loan needs, like for your life needs. So ultimately, it really depends on what your needs are, on what kind of degree you're getting, and if you have previous degrees. I know a lot of people are a little bit concerned with how much student loan debt that they're going to get into, and I can talk about that separately, but only if you guys want me to. So let me know if you're interested in like student loan repayments and things like that.
Yeah, see, them loans sound good and all, but at the end of the day, it's still a loan. You still got to pay it back, and when you're not promised a job or a high-paying job that's going to pay you enough to really live comfortable and pay that loan back at the same time, I don't think it's worth it, me personally, especially in 2025. Maybe a few years ago, maybe if you're Gen X, then that was an opportunity that made sense for you, or it actually was an opportunity. Right now, it's a hindrance. Those loans going to hinder you. They're going to set you back in life, make it to where you never can move forward. My opinion, personally. Let me know what y'all think about that, family. But in 2025, it's completely different than how it was back in the day. Back then and back when, you know?
You guys do not know what it's like to go to a job that doesn't feel like work. Some of you guys are still stuck in this anxiety loop. You're having panic attacks on the way to work. You're shedding a tear when you have to clock into your 12-hour shift. You're telling your friends and family that you hate your life because you spend half of it working and you hate your job. And this is not to be like, oh my gosh, you guys don't get it, and like, I am just such a better person than you. No, because when I was stuck in a job I hated, that was me. I hated my life. I literally cried every single night before I had to wake up for a shift. I would wake up in the middle of the night with panic attacks because I was so just riled up and nervous to go to my job at the hospital. And it just hit me as I was driving home from work today because it was so casual. I went, I hung out with my client, I gave them an IV, we chatted, we laughed, I left smiling, I'm walking down the street, like, I was like, wait, like, who am I? Like, when did this switch happen? And I realized it's because I found a nursing career, a nursing pathway that I truly, actually love.
Man, see, I can't do nothing that I feel that in my soul. Before I go in, I feel like, man, I hate being here, I hate my life, all of that. I feel like that when I went to the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, when I was a kid, and I had to stop going, I don't want to go to the YMCA. It ain't sitting right with me on the inside, you know? I just can't do it, me personally. And I know how it is, though. And I know people, they be, I hate my job. I don't want to go to work tomorrow. I got to go to work. That's a miserable life. That feeling right there, that feeling of rejection, you're rejecting that job, feeling like you doing something that you shouldn't be doing. I would have to follow that. If I feel like I should not be doing this, I can't do it. The Most High will provide another way for me. That's my way of thinking, my level of thinking. It's always been that way for me, with me. I feel like I'm selling my soul otherwise. Moral of the story, do something you love. Like she said, if you do a nursing career that you love or a job that you love in general, then it don't feel like work. Y'all probably heard that saying before. You want to do something that you love, that way it doesn't feel like work. It's not really work because you love to do it. You would do it for free. Do something you would do for free. That's my only advice to you. Then that way you won't have that feeling. You see what I'm saying?
People are paying attention to all of these healthcare worker layoffs happening. Nurse practitioners, nurses, physicians, advanced practice providers being laid off, nurses being laid off, patient care techs being laid off, respiratory, PT, OT, speech. Max, calm down, buddy. What's going on there? Just relax. Primary care offices closing, labor and delivery units closing, entire hospitals closing, urgent cares, emergency rooms, rural access facilities closing. And ask yourself how that could be happening during a respiratory surge. Also knowing how short-staffed facilities already are. Personnel are a cost. Frontline personnel are an expensive cost. Frontline personnel are expensive, and they're expensive to keep. Brand new personnel are a lot less expensive than experienced personnel.
Yep.
They're less expensive to turn over, to temporarily replace. Think about why that's happening. Think about why that is. Considering the immense need for healthcare in this country, consider whether or not you, your loved ones, your family members, your friends have needed healthcare, primary care, specialists, healthcare facilities, urgent cares, hospitals. Consider how often, how frequently you or your loved ones have needed care as of late. How difficult it was to wait, right? Seeing how understaffed healthcare facilities already are. And think about why they would be doing mass layoffs.
I need y'all to answer that. With everything she just outlined, why do you think they're doing mass layoffs? There's a shortage of workers within the healthcare industry, and they're still doing mass layoffs. I want y'all to drop a comment below and let me know why y'all think that is. Thumbs up the comment that y'all think is the best, the person that had the best answer. I'm going to give y'all a little second for that. Me, I would say the same answer I always give y'all, because we're transferring over to a new workforce that'll be powered by artificial intelligence. They already have AI lawyers. There was a lawyer that represented somebody before. Also, doctors that are AI. Also, surgeons that are AI. Artificial intelligence surgeons. AI is helping within the medical field. We headed towards some weird dystopian or utopian world. That's what I feel. But y'all let me know what y'all think.
Do you think it's because they don't need the staff? Or do you think it's because of corporate greed?
I just got laid off.
I think it's both.
Was laid off.
I think it's both, because everything I just said, they don't need the staff, they don't need the workers, and corporate greed. The corporate greed part is AI. It does the job of 3 people, and it's a one-time payment. It's not weekly or bi-weekly checks going to the robot.
On my outpatient job, and I was working at a NICU follow-up clinic. I have never experienced something like this before. So I'm doing what any sane person would do, which is I'm eating French fries, waiting to go into Hobby Lobby. I will say I'm very thankful that I work per diem. I do have a second job that I'll just pick up a little bit more at. I don't have benefits through this job, so I'm not taking a hit as much as a lot of the other nurses are, but whoa. I have a lot of feelings about this. I think the biggest one I'm feeling though is disappointment and I'm a little bit angry. This is the first time where I have seen with my own eyes that we treat healthcare like a business. Sucks because at the end of the day, the people who are suffering this layoff the most isn't me, it's not the nurses, although yes, we are suffering, it's the kids. And that's what I'm having such a hard time understanding is, why are we doing this when we know the detrimental impact it's going to have on the patients who are the children?
This is how much it costs to become a registered nurse in California, going from the most affordable to the most expensive. I'm going to be going over schools specifically in Southern California. So there's 2 degrees that you can get as a registered nurse. You can get your ADN, which is your associate's degree in nursing, or you can get your BSN, which is your bachelor's degree in nursing. So the first school I'm going to be talking about is Golden West Community College, which is in Huntington Beach, California. It's going to be for your ADN, which is your associate's degree. And before you can get accepted into the program, you have to take your prerequisite classes, which is basically like your English classes, psych classes, your bio classes like anatomy, physiology, microbiology. So it'll take you about 1 to 2 years to complete these prerequisites, and the cost is approximately $1,058 for all of the prereqs. Once you get accepted into their ADN program, the total program cost is $7,284, bringing a total of $8,342. The next college I'm going to be talking about is Cal State Fullerton, and this is for your BSN, which you'll probably complete over a course of 4 to 5 years. Now, this cost is for a student who lives at home with their parents, and the cost includes the total tuition and campus fees, books, and supplies. So the total estimated cost, according to the Cal State website, is $8,007. If you're going to be going...
This is why I'm leaving my profession of being a nurse in Canada to move to Europe. So other than the obvious reasons of moving to Europe, I've been a nurse for exactly 1 year. I feel like a jaded 40-year-old nurse already. Okay, there's so many reasons why the Canadian healthcare system is suffering right now. I'm not going to get into all the reasons, But essentially, the oversimplified version of why it sucks so badly right now, for me specifically, is because there's essentially no preventative medicine right now. All of the focus is fixing the problems very far down the road. There's essentially no upstream medicine, and it is all falling to tertiary care. What that means is that essentially people aren't getting healthcare unless they're really, really sick. This is because there's no family doctors, so there's like no primary care medicine available. The population in Canada is getting bigger and bigger because of immigration and natural human migration patterns. There's also an increase in the aging population. However, there's a complete lack of funding, and there's a complete lack of health infrastructure and people that want to work in healthcare. And
All right, let me pause it right there. I'm gonna let her continue after this, but I gotta point this out. See, people in America, they be like, I'm gonna move to Canada. They got free healthcare. But as you see, as a Canadian resident is telling you, it's not what you think. It's not what it seems. It's not as it's promoted or talked about. I just need to point that out because people be like, oh, it's not fair. They got free healthcare. It's not what you think.
funded for that. Just to put this into perspective, I've said it once and I'll say it again. Nursing students work full time and do not get paid for it. In fact, they have to pay out of their own pockets or from their student loans to fund their full-time nursing practicums when they are working full-time. But engineers and tradespeople, they all get paid for that shit. And then there's a complete lack of nurses. So pretty much by the time you get out of nursing school, you're already burnt out in a lot of ways. And then when you get into the big wide healthcare world, it is literally impossible to promote health and wellness in the ways that you want to.
Facts. If you really want to heal, promote herbs. Become an herbalist. That's the true medicine. It's not cut with the BS that the pharmaceutical industry cut it with. It actually heals you. It doesn't maintain the sickness. Healthcare is a business. So instead of going to school for that, you go ahead and start you a Shopify store. You run you some ads online. You get you a supplier. And you sell you some herbs. If you really want to help some people. That's all it takes. It's a couple steps. It don't take you 4 or 5 years. None of that. The pharmaceutical industry is the biggest drug dealers. They don't care to solve health problems. When there's somebody that's working within that industry that wants to actually solve the problem, they fire them. Sometimes they unalive them if they get too tapped in and too smart and really realize what's going on. Watch What the Health if you haven't seen that documentary. It's a lot of documentaries out there, but watch that one. That was the first one that I watched and learned about the healthcare industry and the food as well. The food industry, the FDA, the whole nine.
It's getting really long, so like for part 2.
When I went to nursing school, I never thought that I would leave the field within like 5 years, but that's what happened. My mom has been a NICU nurse for almost 17 years now, and I thought I would at least make it to 10. But within my first year of working as a nurse, I experienced lateral violence, bullying, retaliation, and severe burnout to the point where I wanted to leave my unit, but my manager was blocking my ability to switch units, so I felt trapped. Around that same time when I was really struggling and just hoping to escape my unit, something happened. The year was 2020 and something opened up. Volunteer positions to work on the COVID cohort unit at my hospital. So I was first in line. I'm like, you know what? This will help me actually leave this role that I am being forced to stay in on this unit where I feel like if I don't leave, I don't know what's going to happen to me. I felt unsafe, I felt unsupported, and you just shouldn't trap someone in a role. Like, that doesn't make sense, and it's also not good for your mental health. So in hindsight, deciding to volunteer to work on the COVID cohort unit was not my best move. If I could have Back to the Future myself and said, hey, maybe don't do that because things are gonna be rough. So I basically thought working through the unknown in a global pandemic would somehow be better than the current working situation that I was in. So working in Florida, extremely understaffed. There are no safe staffing ratios in Florida, and actually safe staffing ratios are on the ballot now in Florida. And I have friends who I used to work with who basically saying that the hospital that I worked for is putting out statements to the community, letting them know that that bill is something that should not be passed, which is absolutely disgusting because I know for a fact patients have been unsafe in those facilities that do not abide by safe staffing standards, and I witnessed so much harm because of it. But that's a whole other can of worms. So because of unsafe staffing, I was turning patients by myself. I remember I had a patient actually fall on me at the end of 2021. In 2021, I had my lowest point where I experienced SI. I needed to be placed on an antidepressant. I went back to therapy and I was not doing well. I had become numb in my role. It was like Groundhog Day. Like I was waking up, going to work, getting through each shift, not really remembering what happened, going to sleep, and then doing it all over again. And on my days off, I would just rot in bed. And my husband actually looked at me and he said, you know, you haven't been present, you haven't been here in X amount of years, all because of my role. So flash forward to our wedding at the end of 2021, I took 3 weeks off. And I remember my last shift, like it was one of the best shifts I'd had. We were fully staffed. I had a great assignment. My patients were so kind. It was like the perfect shift. And I had no idea that it was going to be my last. So we had a beautiful wedding in December. We had actually postponed from March of 2020 to the end of 2021. Our whole family was vaccinated, boosted, and everyone was testing beforehand. And thankfully, no one got sick at our wedding. 1 week later, on Christmas Day, my husband and I got into a car accident. It was really traumatic, and our corgi was actually in the back seat, but thankfully we were all pretty much okay. I remember I was in a C-collar with Sean in front of me, terrified because he couldn't get out of the vehicle, and I thought that he couldn't move his legs. I thought the worst. But the first thought I had when I finally sat down and had that C-collar around my neck and my husband's in a stretcher in front of me while I'm in the ambulance on the way to the emergency room, my first thought is, oh God, I have to call in. Who's going to cover my shift tonight? That was the moment I realized that I was giving way too much to my role.
Right.
I had lost the plot completely. So then a week later, I start having some lower back pain. I start having some numbness and tingling in my right leg. I go to a neurologist. The rain is getting really loud, so you're probably not going to be able to hear me, so I'm just going to make a part 2.
Man, that's deep. She said her husband said she hasn't been present in X amount of years due to her role at her job. Right? You could be there, but you could physically not be present. This is a real thing, and this is due to burnout, due to overworking, due to always thinking about work, that always constantly being on your mind. Even after a car accident, she like, oh, I got to call in. Like, that job really took over her and impacted her for the worse and in the worst way. And that's what these jobs do, these over-demanding jobs. Being in healthcare is very stressful. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how nobody's a police officer. I don't know how anybody's a firefighter. Those are the main ones. I don't know how y'all do it. If it's anybody watching this that's in any of those industries, I don't know how y'all do it. Respectfully, y'all built different. Yeah, family, let me know what y'all think about this video. Peace. And tell my Hebrew family, shalom. I'll catch y'all on the next one.